willing to share that video that you shared with me. That was great. I know it's a little bit just nerve-wracking to share a video of yourself doing something. So I just wanted to thank you for your humility and your willingness to do that. And I hope that our time that we spend together today reviewing it and talking through it, we'll watch a few parts of it, can just be really beneficial for you and can help you in your future supervision meetings. So before we do anything else, I just want to acknowledge the good work that you did and just acknowledge what it is that you did. So you recognize the need for a skill that one of your supervisors needed. And you talked in a previous meeting with her about that need, and it sounds like that previous meeting you kind of elaborated with her more about kind of her anxiety and what she was going through. You prepared for your meeting, you emailed her ahead of time, made sure that she knew, exactly what you were going to cover and had time to kind of think about it beforehand, which especially with someone struggling with anxiety, that probably helped her feel more comfortable going in. You related to her, you told her about yourself and your own challenges, and you didn't have any stigma attached. You sounded very non-judgmental in your tone and excited to work with her about it. And then you taught a skill. Well, you actually taught 2 skills. You taught the 2 skills, you gave her feedback, you gave her a lot of encouragement and support as she did it. And she was able to leave that meeting with feeling confident in those skills and in being able to find some new skills that she could potentially find on her own. So I just wanted to talk about what you did, and I wanted to ask you how you felt about how it went.
So I think that it went pretty well for the most part. I feel like I wasn't even, looking back on it, I was thinking about the different skills, and I kind of picked 2 that were a little out of the comfort zone, more so than what other skills might have been. And so I feel like, looking back, I wish I would have picked 1 skill that was a little bit more out of the comfort zone, and then 1 that was more in the comfort zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Tell me about how you decided the ones that you picked.
So I did a little bit of research beforehand, and just what I researched is how to calm the actual chemistry in the body during the moment of an anxiety attack, because for her, it wasn't just that she was anxious. It was that when she comes to a client's house, she is becoming so anxious that she can't pull herself through it to complete the job. And so it was starting to affect work and everything. So I just wanted to focus on quick and easy, little things that she could do to help pull her out of being in that moment of anxiety. And during the research, these 2 things were mentioned several times. And so I just came down to having to choose. And I feel like with those, you have one that is a mindfulness, but yet body reaction. Mm-hmm. And the other one is more mental. So I wanted to kind of go with biology and right.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you did a good job of balancing the research and, what research says is a helpful skill with what she, her comfort zone and what she needs and what would actually work in practice. And you did a lot of things. I mean, it was both in her head with the positive thinking and then, with her hand that she could do really subtly. She can do that under the table in a meeting. Right. No one would know if she was doing it. So that was good to give her those. Well, I want to give you a couple pieces of feedback. How do you feel about getting feedback on something? Does that make you nervous? Are you excited?
It used to make me nervous, but now I just see it as an opportunity to grow. So I really appreciate it, and feel free to be as honest as you want with me, because I promise I have tough skin, and I'll just try to do better with it next time.
Great. Well, that's how I wanted to frame it too, is this whole conversation is just to help you grow. It's not that you're in trouble, you didn't do anything wrong. You did a great job in your supervision meeting with her, and you could watch her comfort level increase as the thing went on. So you did a really great job, so I want you to keep that in the back of your mind, and we'll just go through some thoughts. We'll watch a few pieces together and just kind of talk through what you can change, what you can consider, different thought processes you had during it. But yeah, see it as a growing opportunity. I want to frame it like that for you. Okay. I want to talk first about your nonverbals. You did a great job and I know it was over the video chat, and you gave her eye contact, you were smiling the entire video. You could easily be looking at something next to your computer, and you weren't. You were very focused on her the whole time. You had clearly looked at the skills beforehand and practiced them, so you didn't need to be looking down at the instructions to show her how to do them, which I'm sure made her feel much more comfortable, and you could watch her her comfort and So that was great. That was awesome. You asked a lot of questions, and then when she answered them, you asked a lot of follow-up questions, which really does it shows her that you're listening. It's a great way to show her that you heard what she's saying, and then to gather even more information. So that was fantastic. When she had doubts or confusions or just kind of was concerned about being able to do it in the field, you listened to that, you helped her brainstorm when she could do it, you made it really practical for her. So like, you can do this when you're opening the handle of your car. Very specific and not vague at all, which I think was really powerful for her. It makes it easier for her to be able to go implement it immediately. And a big thing that I thought you did so well was that you complimented her and appreciated her practice. This is a difficult topic. And it's obviously one where there's like a fine line between when you're becoming her therapist and when you're being her supervisor, and you balanced it really well. You did a great job of saying these are some strategies you can use without, getting into her personal life or what's going on. So that was fantastic, and you really did. You showed her a lot of appreciation for her willingness to try different strategies, which is going to make her want to keep doing them. And then you gave her that homework to find some more, which is great. And because she had practiced it with you and you told her that she did, you encouraged her in the way that she did that, I think she would be much more willing to do that homework and to find more strategies. And then she even said, I kind of thought it was silly, but once I did it, I realized it was actually really helpful. So I think going through that role play was strategic on your part, because it made it so that when she finds her own strategies, she'll maybe actually try them, even if they look a little silly. I just want to show you one time that you did that. So we're going to find 6:30 if we can on here. We'll start right here. This is just a short clip. I want you to watch yourself complimenting her and just see how that looks to you.
Okay. So that was the end of the 30 seconds. I know that trying those techniques can be a little weird. Some people aren't open to them or feel like it's not going to work or whatever. But so I just want to say I appreciate you trying that right there. That was really awesome. And you did a great job. So what did you think about that?
So that's all we're going to watch for that part.
Okay.
So do you see how you gave her some specific feedback? You told her she did a great job, and that you acknowledged that it's kind of weird and it felt uncomfortable, but thanked her for doing it anyway, which, how'd you feel about watching that clip?
I think I did that really well.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, I guess in the moment, in my head I'm like, okay, I gotta hit, all these points, and instead of just watching it back, like, oh wow, I really pulled that one up, so that made me feel good.
Good, yeah, you did a great job, and you can see you had like perfect eye contact that whole time you were looking right at her, which can be hard to do when you're complimenting someone. It feels more natural to kind of look away sometimes. So you did a great job being really confident, and I think it made a big impact on her. Let's talk through a couple critical things that you might be able to change. I know it's always easier to see these in ourselves when we watch it back too, so if you have any thoughts about things you notice as you watch with me or think about it, throw those out there as well.
Okay.
A couple small things were with your nonverbals, you did a lot of touching your hair in the beginning of the video, so just something to be aware that you do. A lot of times those are things we don't notice about ourselves until we watch a video, so just be aware of that. I have my own little things that I do. It's particularly hard when you're on a video because you're actually alone in the room with just your computer, so just being aware of that. And then you did, and this may have been a strategic decision, I'm not sure, but when you were like starting the actual lesson part, you said, I'm gonna start now, instead of like, we're gonna start now. And so it's just something to be aware of, that your language around whether I'm teaching this lesson to you or we're practicing something together, which is more of what you did, was practice it with her for the most part through your two different lessons. And so just think about that language. I don't know if you did it just talking, just naturally, or if it was a strategic decision. But with some supervisees, you want them to recognize your authority. Maybe they're struggling with that, so it might be intentional.
Okay.
With
no,
others,
I should have used we for sure.
It seems like with her, this was a we. This is what we're going to practice together. I struggle with this too. Let's do this together. So just be cautious and conscious of those things. There were a couple times where you asked kind of closed questions, like, does that make sense? And she'd say, yep. Which didn't leave a lot of room for actually seeing how she was feeling or what she was doing, which it's a very natural question to ask after you explain something. And so just thinking through, a lot of times the question, what questions do you have for me? Instead of, do you have any questions? Because then they'll just say no. But you say, what questions do you have for me? Or what didn't make sense about that? Or what excites you about that? Things where they have to actually give an answer can be helpful. So just something for thought. And you did do that a few times, but just being careful to do it at the, after you teach a whole skill, making sure before you go into practicing it that she's had a chance to ask any questions or share any thoughts. One other thing that had to do with we talked about, with some, the I versus we, like we talked about with some supervisors, you want to kind of exert that authority. With others, you might not. One chance you had to do that when you kind of didn't, and I would guess that was probably appropriate for her, was to say, it's up to you if you want to look at those papers now or if you want to just refer to your email later. If you wanted to have a more authoritative supervision meeting, you could say, I emailed you, I told you to have them printed out, show me that you have them, and just be, instead of giving her those choices, just say, this is my expectation. But that, again, is not, am I sensing correctly that with her it was more of a collaborative, she's not doubting your authority, she's appreciating your support.
No, but I could totally see where, if I needed to exert that authority, how telling them to have it, printed out and ready.
So just things to think through, with certain supervisees, and then you of course don't want to be unfair, so with sometimes you just have to have the same expectation with everyone, so just keeping that in mind. The big thing I want to talk to you about is framing. I could tell that you had a very super clear plan for this meeting. You had strategies that you wanted to teach her and skills and a plan for how she was going to role play that. Just a little bit, like using framing just a little bit to help her know what was coming, I think might have helped her. So framing anxiety, talking about the thing, which you did a great job not having a stigma attached in your tone or in your voice, and you said, I struggle with this too, but you never actually said, this is something that has stigma and it can be hard. Anxiety is just a tough thing to talk about, it's a tough thing to admit you have, there's a lot of stigma in our society about it. So that frame could have popped, as well as, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk about a strategy, I'm going to explain why we do it, and then we're going to practice it. So just using those kind of like, let me give you the agenda for what we're going to do. Might kind of help her know, so that when she finished that first skill, do we have 3 more skills to practice? Are we doing 1 more? How long is each one going to take? As well as framing how you chose which 2 you picked. Because in the end, you end up saying that there's a ton you can choose from. Go out and choose which ones work for you. Some of them aren't going to work for everyone. So if before you started, you even said to her, I picked these 2, these might not work for you. Instead of, let's talk about exactly how to implement it. Because that's what you end up saying is find 3 more, let's find what works for you, but framing that in the beginning is could have helped her. Let's watch one spot where you did some framing. See if I can get it to go there. All right, this one's just a couple quick part.
Work. So the reason I wanted to set up this session with you today is because with anxiety, I feel like it can be debilitating unless we learn ways to get through it. And there are multiple ways to try to calm yourself down during an anxiety attack. So, just for example, there's like breathing exercises, or some say you can go for a walk or walk away from the situation. Close your eyes and visually meditate.
I'll stop it there, but see, you started to kind of frame this idea that there's a lot of things, but then you just kind of jumped into the examples, but these weren't the examples you ended up teaching her, so it's just a little confusing of like, is your goal that you do these 2 strategies every time you get to an appointment, or is your goal to find one that works for you? So we can kind of frame that. I'm going to check that the camera's still recording really fast, but while I do that, why don't you think of how would you change that framing, and then I'd like you to do it with me. And we are good on the recording. Sorry to interrupt. Whoopsies. How would you do that framing differently?
So I would just better explain it and say that, yes, there are countless ways to calm yourself in an anxiety attack, and then I would just explain basically what I explained to you in the beginning. Of why I picked that. So I picked one that was more focused on the actual body itself, and then one that was focused on the mind, and then explained to her the reason I picked those 2 is because, the research, and then...
And you said you already did that. You did the work, you picked them out strategically, you didn't just randomly pick 2, you didn't just open a binder, grab the first 2 pages. You really did think through it, and so helping her see that is important.
Yes,
I see that now.
Yes.
But yeah, you did a great job. And those are great thoughts for how you would change it for the future. sure. As we kind of wrap up thinking about the whole thing, I'd like to hear you verbalize something that you think you did really well, whether it was something I said, something else. I think it's important for confidence as a supervisor just to know what you did really well.
So I think that what I did really well is, and I guess, you know, only I could really know this part, but is I have anxiety, clearly. I mentioned that in the video. So whenever I am supervising, I feel a little shaky. I feel a little nervous, intimidated as well. So I use these skills on myself and with the positive self-talk and everything. So I feel like with this specific video, I did really well with conveying confidence and coming across that I am highly competent, and I did do the research before, and I did all that before to help me with the anxiety and feel like, you know, okay, I got this, I can do this. And then this was, so I just feel like I got through that fear finally and improving on that part.
That's great. I mean, I perceived you as confident, you were smiling, you gave eye contact, you had great posture.
And normally that's difficult for me, so
obviously you did what you needed to do and used great strategies to do that, so you should be proud of yourself.
Thank you.
And thank you for the vulnerability to share that with me. I know that takes some humility, so thank you. And you're definitely not letting it get in your way, because you had a great supervisory meeting with her, and I'm sure you do it often. What's one big takeaway? What's something you want to work on?
The framing, exactly what you said. I do notice that, like in my head, it's framed, and I have all these bullet points in my head that I want to hit, but I do mess up in the sense of not expressing that. Like, I get so caught up in thinking that you know what's in my head, and I have to break through that and make sure that I explain it well enough and break it down for the supervisees. And then another thing I would like to take away is using that we language. I know that it's highly important, especially like when you're not trying to exert the authority and you are trying to get them to feel like, you know, you're not in trouble. This is for us to do together, da 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 da. I just really hope that I can work on using the we language and encouraging, you know.
And you had her practice the strategy. You even could have done it with her. So let's both do this at the same time.
Okay.
So anything like that where you can kind of do it collaboratively and mutually benefit is great. But it had that vibe to it. It just was those little tiny moments where, you know, you use the word I instead of we, or didn't do it with her. But those are little things. Overall, you definitely felt very supportive, very genuine. So it's a great place to be where what you're focusing in on is those little things.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I just want to encourage you. This was great, and you accepted feedback, both critical and positive, really well. You just have such a learning, an attitude of wanting to learn, and that's really important and really powerful. And I just want to encourage you to keep requesting feedback, keep asking for it, keep taking videos and watching them, giving yourself feedback. I'm happy to do it anytime as well.
Awesome. Good.
But overall, you did a really great job, and it was such a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the feedback and taking your time to really, you know, go through it and critique it, and then word it in a very positive way whenever it came down to needing to improve. So you did a really good job of not making me feel like I messed up or did something horrible.
Well, good, because you definitely did a great job. It was a fantastic video and a great session, and you really did. Overall, I will say, having to do a video over the camera like that is challenging, and you did a really great job. Just
thank you.
Finding a way to have eye contact and do it anyway.